Manor Lords is a big game with tons of systems and overlapping mechanics that can be very daunting or at least confusing the first time you jump into the game. Trade, farming, combat, logistics, all these things are going to be constant touchstones in your everyday labors as a Lord of the Manor. In this video, I want to help you break into the game with my Ultimate Beginner's Guide, chronicling all of the many things you'll be doing or perhaps pushing you through some of the stuff that you'll get stuck on. Now, if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. That is a little difficult to do, though, with the nature of an entire guide for beginners. So what I'll say instead is that I've broken this video down into the constituent parts you'll be dealing with across all the buildings. You can find all of those chapters below, so simply navigate to the building, topic, or mechanic you're struggling with the most. And definitely take your time with this. It is a little bit of a mechanic heavy game. So if you get overwhelmed and you struggle, that's no big deal. You just reload and try again, or you make a new game and try again. It's not a big deal to kind of fail the first couple outings of this game because you didn't understand how certain mechanics work or what the timeline is. So just keep trying and you'll eventually kind of get to a point where things click for you. And I think that's really true of all games, but especially these larger city builder or grand strategy games as you kind of jump into them. And usually I make these guides as sort of a play along experience, but Manor Lords is so much of a sandbox that I want you to play in the mud a bit to try and figure out things on your own first. So each chapter will just outline a specific area and we'll bring that all together at the end of the video. I'll still be growing this town alongside you, but using the magic of hard cuts and editing. Outside of that, if you've not yet purchased Manor Lords and you'd like to support the channel, you can use the link in my description to my Nexus Store. Nexus gets Steam keys directly from the developer, Greg in this case, and delivers them to you. Like I said, it greatly supports me. Lastly, if the video ends up helping you out with the game, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those things does have a huge impact on the channel as well. But let's get started here on my Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Manor Lords. Jumping into the game with this beautiful music playing, just kind of lulling you to sleep. One of the first concepts I want to touch on, and it's a really important one because it's going to touch into pretty much everything that we talk about after this point. And it's the first thing that you should really be working on when you jump into the game as well, is both your granary and your storehouse. Essentially the logistics of this game and how these two buildings are really going to be the lifeblood of your entire society, because this is how they get all of their food, their firewood, their clothes. This is how you make sure all of your food in general doesn't expire in the rain or any of the many things that can happen. It's a very big portion of your playthrough experience in Manor Lords. I'm going to bring both of these buildings up and we can see both of them. And I have manned both of them. I put a family in both. And what that means is, with the granary and with the storehouse, I think it hovers over here, workers collect, store, and distribute goods using generic storage. Same thing here, and they're using the pantry. If needed, they will also automatically set up stalls in the marketplace to distribute the stored goods to the Burgage plots. And we'll get to that when we talk about marketplaces and what have you. But each one of these is going to be important because you're going to start with some bread and you're going to start with some firewood, some stone, some tools, and timber is not something that's going to be stored. You don't ever have to worry about timber expiring in the rain. It'll be used well before anything bad can happen to it. As I take a deep breath. But what happens here now is your workers that are here are going to go grab the items that are in these storage locations on all of the other many buildings that you're going to see across the map, right? So it's like, okay, that's not a good example. So for example, this. Here we go. So usually I have to do cool editing. I don't have to do that here today. So the storehouse is not going to go pick up anything from the logging camp, but the logging camp does have its own log storage. And that log storage, though, is going to go towards stuff like, say, the woodcutter's lodge. And I'll talk about those buildings in specific and what they do. But firewood here is going to be stored by the storehouse. So the person working the storehouse is going to go walk over there, grab the firewood, and bring it back to the storehouse. Now, conversely, the granary is going to basically take advantage of anything that has a local pantry. So the granary here is going to go, the guy's going to walk over to the berries, pick up the berries, bring them back to the granary, and then establish market stalls. Now, why these things are important to know is that your pops, your workers, your families, whatever you want to call them, in whatever constraints or whatever game you're coming from, they will carry things from location to location with their hands, and they will only move one item at a time. Now, when you have things at the granary and the storehouse, they will use hand carts. These little hand carts here, I think if I hover over him, it'll tell me. He might actually have just dropped this off. It should tell me if it might sometimes there's a little like magnifying glass. There we go. Aha, there it is. Transporting firewood. So he is transporting 10 firewood to this location. And if I unpause, he should, oh, he's going to go pick it up. So they can at max carry 10 firewood. So he's going to go grab that single bundle of firewood and bring it back, maybe whatever kind of gets compiled in the meantime. And this is important because the granary and the storehouse are going to be where people are going to pull the materials from for their actual bits of crafting or refining, whatever it is. When we talk about farms, we'll talk about how you basically will kind of look at grain and flour and all those things. But both of these have an advanced tab. And in this advanced tab, we have resource groups. And this allows us to restrict or allow what goes to the granaries and the storehouse. Now, in your first foray to the game, when you're first jumping on, this isn't going to be as huge for you. But I do have a video on farms and how all of them work. All of that works. And in that, I tell you to restrict grain and flour from the granary right here. And the reason behind that is when you restrict certain products from coming into these locations, you're allowing the local storage of whatever has that. So for example, since we talked about grain and flour, this has the generic storage of wheat. This is right here. And then eventually that wheat gets milled into into grain. So if I turn this off by clicking these buttons, then the farmhouse, which already has a pretty high amount of storage, will stockpile these things. And this allows me to kind of overlap things that will stick together. So what I mean by that is this farmhouse, well, eventually I'm going to want to turn that grain here, I'm going to want to turn it into flour. Well, now I'm going to shut off flour. So now there's nothing that's going to be stored in the granary that is flour related. So I can have my windmill right here. And then right next to that windmill, I can have an oven. Now, of course, we're going to talk more about those things later, but what this allows me to do is fine tune what stays in the local storage of the buildings that they are inherently created at and what goes to the storage of the granary and the storehouse so that I can maximize the distance in which all of my pops need to go for anything. So back to this example, if I allow grain and flour to both come into my granary, then anytime anyone at the windmill wants to turn grain into flour, they have to walk from, let's say the windmill is right here. They have to walk all the way down, pick it up from the granary, and then walk all the way back. And then if someone at the baker wants to turn that newly made flour into bread, well, first the windmill has to have that flour transported down over here to the granary. And then the bakers are going to go walk all the way down one at a time to grab one item at a time and bring it from the granary back to the baker to make it. So you see that the logistics in this game are not very apparent when you jump in. You're probably like, what does this all have to do with anything? I get it, man. This granary and storehouse, it stores it all. But it's really about maximizing the distance that everything has to go to do what they need to do by allowing you to utilize the granary and the storehouse or the local storage of a location so that you can kind of maximize where things want to go. Like, so for example, too, where is this? Is it industry I'm looking for? What a great video I've got going here, huh? Click these damn things all the time. There it is. So the saw pit. The saw pit will transform timber into planks. So if I made that saw pit right there, and the woodcutter's lodge is right here, well, all of my timber is right here. So this allows me to leverage myself into not having my guys walk as far, or not having ox transport those logs a long distance. Oh, picking up a log here and dropping it off here. Now, if I made any of those camps all the way over here, that just makes it harder on me. So just keep these things in mind when it comes to kind of creating a workflow and a logistics kind of breakdown for your entire society, because those things are going to be very important for you. And that's why I leaned in first with this portion of the video, because maybe I talked about some things so far that you just went over your head. Like, dude, I don't even know what the hell a windmill is. No big deal. I'm just trying to exemplify how in the beginning, you can kind of keep this stuff all willy-nilly, but eventually you're going to want to start fine-tuning and even building multiple granaries. Take, for example, this all the way out here. This hunting camp is going to generate meat for me. I can make a granary right here. And click all the buttons that are not the right button. A granary right here. And I can staff this granary. And all that meat is going to go into the granary. But here is where all this comes together. All these goods are then sold at the marketplace, which we'll talk more about in a bit. They will magically transport from the granary to the marketplace like that. I don't know if that snap went on my microphone, but I snapped my fingers. It's an instant weird transportation. They just go there through wormhole or whatever kind of osmosis gets the meat over there. They do not need to be transported. So if you have meat up here that's being stored and it's not kind of overwhelming the small local storage of the hunting camp, it allows you to immediately sell it over here at the marketplace by instant transmission or whatever the hell Goku can do. But that's how all these things come together and how they're going to be the first big steps you take in the game, because establishing these two are crucial so that you get all of the goods you start with off of the ground and in storage. Now, since we talked about the logistics of everything, part of that logistics is also your road system. Now, anything that is kind of out all the way over here, it's going to need a road to connect it. And of course, you just simply bring up the R button and you can kind of click and drag things around and build your roads as you need. And I'd recommend to have fun with the road curvature button, holding down control and using the mouse wheel to have these roads have a little bit of life, right? Like roads in the Middle Ages weren't just like perfectly straight like this, right? We don't have the Roman format of making roads, which was a whole process. We're like, oh, we're just going to trot on a path through this. But making sure that you've established roads to locations enables it so that your pops can quickly navigate to those locations, especially oxen or any kind of beasts of burden or the hand carts. So ensuring that you have these little circles kind of hit with a road in some way, shape, or form, it ensures that your guys can kind of move around pretty easily. You can even kind of hit these backlane things too, that sometimes like, hey, you know what? My character's coming in from a certain angle, this might help out. Or, hey, you know what? This is where we're going to go and do a lot of our woodwork. Let me have a road to that so they can at least traverse these paths quicker. Like I've said before, a lot of this game comes down to the speed in which your pops can quickly navigate their basic jobs. And if you can enhance their speed by building roads that are direct, not just simply like, oh, I've got this huge field over here, I'm going to have the most windy path to get to it. No, hey, they can take the King's Road right up to it and boom, they're in. So you can kind of navigate this as you see fit, but definitely I use the roads in the beginning of the game to set out and plot out how everything works. So for example, you can't see it too well because of all these trees, but I've set roads here to kind of act as the initial block for the housing that I create, which we'll go over in the Burgage Slots section. But I now know, okay, when I want to expand these Burgage Slots, I've got this area to kind of make it a little bit more dynamic and cool and fluid versus just a whole block of homes that are on a kind of a rigid grid. And that's something I just don't like while playing city builders. I like them to kind of have a little bit of life to them. Also, too, I've built this road around this location for my marketplace, or I have roads that intersect over here so that I know that I can build things that, hey, this is the logging camp. Well, all the things that I want to leverage a logging camp are right across the street from it. So the roads kind of act as that thorough way to keep a lot of these logistics we just talked about online. Speaking of logging camps, it's probably your next big investment outside of the granary and the storehouse, because you need the resource of timber to actually do things in this game. So let's talk about the logging camp. And the logging camp is pretty straightforward, right? You build it, they're going to go and they're going to harvest wood, and that's that. And you can press advanced here, and you can press the limiting of the work area. So you can make it so they actually get wood from a very specific area to clear ways for buildings, whatever it is. When you build buildings, they will automatically delete trees. This allows you to kind of at least harvest those trees so that you don't just remove them from your playfield, which is quite nice. Now, what I want you to know, though, about the logging camp is the relocate button. So you can press this button and have this relocate to a different location. Now, the reason you would do that is, let's say I knock out the trees in this immediate area, because this isn't too far to travel, right? Like, in fact, I'm going to make a road here because a lot of them are going over there to travel for wood. This isn't too far for them to go. So we can kind of keep it as is. I could even make this whole entire area their work area. So now this isn't too far. Just go ahead and get everything in this area, fine and dandy. I like to kind of just fine tune that work area though, right? I like to just make it like this and go bam, that's your work area. Either way, once you've kind of harvested these trees, you can designate another work area all the way down here if you want, or all the way over here. But your pop's going to have to make that travel distance from this location all the way down here to get the wood. And then a ox cart has to go all the way down there to grab that wood, then bring it back to the logging camp itself. What I'd recommend is pressing the relocate button once you've harvested the wood in your local area. Let's say we decide to move over here, and just place this, relocate it here. And now you can take advantage of all the wood that's local to this logging camp. The pops can make a quick journey back and forth to the camp. And you, rather than having your ox travel all the way over there, and we're going to talk about that next in the hitching post section, you can simply go to advanced and assign livestock to it. So there's always an ox on site transporting the timber from the field to the local storage of the logging camp. Now, what you need to know, though, before you press this button is you will lose anything that says local storage. So do not do this if you have local storage. What I'd even recommend is if you have local storage at this camp, you could probably just actually have it just completely pause it, temporarily halt all construction and work-related tasks. So no one's going to work here anymore, but people are going to go and pull all the logs from it. Once those logs are at zero, either from the other items that are going to be attached to this, which we'll talk about, then you relocate it. So that way you don't lose those logs. Now, speaking of the logs, we have the kind of, I don't know what to even call them. I guess the byproducts of those logs in both the saw pit and the woodcutter's lodge. Both of these are going to be pretty necessary for you because the woodcutter's lodge is what produces your fuel, your firewood. And you won't need firewood until you make your first burgage slots because they need it to be consumed to last through winter. But you'll need firewood for other production houses or like the manor itself and other things. So they will consume this fuel. So you need the woodcutter's lodge, but it's also something that you don't need to keep people positioned at. You can kind of swap them on and off as long as you have like, hey, you know what? I've got enough fuel to last me a good amount of time. Hint, I don't. 5 months isn't enough time for me. I'm assuming that someone's going to move in and I'm going to have a higher demand on my food and fuel soon. And I'll, again, talk about that in Burgage Slot section. So we want to make sure we have a woodcutter's lodge. That's not something I prioritize because I want to get houses up first because there's no consumption of this fuel until we get houses, at least in the very beginning of the game. And then we have the saw pit. Now the saw pit will use a log and turn that log into planks. I don't know the ratio of timber to plank. I think the woodcutter's lodge is something like 1 timber will make something like 10 planks. I'm sorry, 10 or 20 firewood, and the planks come out in like, I think it's multiples of 7. It's a weird odd number. But with the saw pit, you have, again, the chance to have a permanent livestock that'll just go and bring you the logs to this thing. Anytime you have this advanced thing, it's usually kind of limits that area and such. Is that person sick? Yeah, they are. Oops. And the saw pit will go and grab timber from wherever it can and turn that timber into planks. Planks will be used as a byproduct when it comes to producing stuff like the manor here requires 20 planks. Or where is it? Where is the church? The church here requires another 20 planks. Upgrading the Burgage Slots requires planks. So planks kind of become the next step in building progression when it comes to establishing things. You use timber to build all of your basic stuff, but a lot of the more heavy hitting things cost you planks, or upgrading a lot of these things cost you planks. For example, turning the hitching post into a stable is planks. Turning the granary up is planks. Large granary, large storehouse is planks. Upgrading these burgage slots, it's going to require... Oh, that's just timber. Never mind. Shut me up. I thought it was requiring planks. But either way, you can see that planks kind of become a big progression point for you, but you don't need it right off the bat. But you do have this little guy, construction reserve. Reserve will never be used for crafting so that enough raw resources are left for construction. So I could keep a reserve of 2, meaning that my current stash of timber is 18. They will keep as much timber is available all the way down to 2, meaning that if, let's say, I shut off everything and just put 2 workers here and no one else did anything else, they will use 16 of my 18 available timber and turn it into planks, and they'll leave the last 2 for construction. So this allows me a little flexibility in if I'm running really like kind of razor thin margins on my timber. You're probably never going to need this, to be honest. You'll probably go, oh, my timber's too low and I got to build something that's got like 7 timber requirement. So this thing, just taking 1 piece of timber at a time at a very slow rate, is not going to really hurt you, but it's there if you need it. You'll kind of use this maybe more in certain situations where you need to kind of fine tune smaller villages once you've expanded. But those are all of your wood product buildings, your logging camp, your saw pit, and your woodcutter's lodge. And the logging camp's going to be your next natural progression after setting up all of your storage. So your storage is set up, your logging is set up. Now you need some food. And 2 of the best ways to get food in the early game are from gathering. And gathering can be done with either foraging berries or by hunting. Now, the nice thing about hunting is that it does not cost you anything. No construction cost to create the hunting camp. And the hunting camp is very cool because it is an all-round source of food. You can use this during the winter, whereas berries get locked out during the winter. Same thing with farming, right? You can't really farm during the winter. So what you do here with the hunting camp is place it semi-close to a wild animal reserve or sanctuary. And when you staff it with people, they will go and pull both meat and put it in the pantry and leather and put it in the generic storage. And this allows you to get a source of food and a source of clothing. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it's a really big portion of this game because clothing is going to be required to upgrade your burgage slots. Hunting camps, though, are important because just like your logging camp, they can be relocated. Because eventually these will migrate every so often, or if you build too close to them, they'll migrate, or if they get hunted down to like near nothing, they'll move, all sorts of things. And really the way I do this is advanced, set a work area. It's right here because that's where the wild animals are. And then I set the hunting limit to 10 because usually this is like 20. So they'll hunt it down to 10. And then I actually remove anyone from this hunting camp. We're in August right now. By the time we hit winter, this should probably repopulate up to close to 20. And I'll just have them go and hunt them again. So I kind of pull people on and off of this location. And this allows me to keep a good income of food in the early game. Why I've got 14 months of food is a lot of it's coming from what my early hunting had done. And we also have plenty of leather in wherever that is. I have to shut that off. Leather is right there. Crafting materials have 17 hides. That's quite a bit of hides that we could either use for trading, which is good, or for using it for available clothing. But the hunting post or hunting camp is something you will move around, and you might want to create like we talked about in logistics, right? You might want to logistics. Yeah, was that what I said? Yeah. You might want to create a granary right here, so you can set that granary to only holding meat, allowing it to instantly transport to your main marketplace, but as a great way to kind of offload the hunting camp's pantry, because the pantry here is only 36 units of meat. That's not very large. Most local storage for things like the berries, which we're about to talk about, have a much higher amount of local storage. So this allows you to kind of have someone ferrying the meat out of the hunting camp, and that meat immediately gets transported to our marketplace to be used at stalls. And the other thing for gathering is our forager hut. Now, foraging hut, you can see over here, this is seasonal. It's down to 0. I'm shutting this off right now. There's no reason to kind of continue to forage this, even though we're in August. We might be able to get a little bit more out of this before the winter, but there's no reason to waste population on this if I don't need to. But this is, again, another form of food that adds food variety, which increases the happiness of our populations. Then that food at the forager hut, 50 is actually quite a bit. It takes a long time to get up to 50 because I think this is 60? Yeah, this is 64. So this is almost the entire deposit into the forager hut. So you've got quite a bit of room here. You don't have to worry about putting a pantry right next to it as crucial. My granary, for example, now has 71 berries that we've just taken from that over time. And another thing that the forager hut can do is also relocate. So you can put this next to another berry reserve if you so wish, but it also can add an herb garden down the way. This allows you to treat people if they get sick once you get the money to do so. So you have this option. I just wanted to bring it up. I kind of never touch it I assume that plagues will become a larger part of this game, and having large swaths of your workforce being sick will be a big thing. But right now, sickness isn't that worrisome to me. I just kind of blow right through it. So you can invest in this if you so wish, depending on how you want to approach stuff. But that's your gathering. Let's now talk about the hitching post. So the hitching post is how everything moves around the field, how you get your logs to all your construction sites, how you pull logs from the field and put them into the timber yard, lumber logging camp, whatever it is. All these things are done at the hitching post. And the hitching post has an ox or a mule or a horse. I'd recommend sticking with the ox right now. The horse is bugged for some weird reason. And when you position someone here at the hitching post, it allows them to take these errant resources that are just kind of sitting around and put them where they need to be local storage wise. But if you have someone that says, hey, I'm going to go construct something, they'll go and use the ox themselves. So it's kind of one of those things that the hitching post, putting someone at it in the very beginning of the game, right when you're first starting out, I think is advantageous, because you can actually have people do the construction, have more hands on deck while you've got one. God, I feel like I'm in a corporate meeting. Well, you have one person ferrying around the ox to pick up all the resources that you need to right in the beginning of the game. But as jobs pop up, I actually remove people from the hitching post, and eventually the hitching post just becomes permanently unemployed, because people will just go take the ox if they need it. So don't worry about that. Now, one thing that you should do though, in the very beginning, is make a second hitching post. And at that second hitching post, you should press this button to order another ox. That is crucial, because those oxen are going to allow you to get production done faster, construction done quicker. And you can place those oxen into those locations. Like I said over here, advance, place a permanent livestock. I don't think these guys can. No, they can't. Or if you have the plows, permanent livestock over here. So all those things are actually very crucial to helping you have one ox that's pretty much set to construction and resource gathering, while the other ox is interchangeably swapped out to the other locations that you really want to have a livestock at. Like I have that livestock over here at the farmhouse. Well, we're not plowing anymore, so might as well remove the ox, right? It's not as big of a deal. So we bring the ox back, and now the ox can help out with construction in the meantime. So the hitching post is something that you can also relocate at its current stage. As soon as you upgrade it to a stable, though, it cannot. And that's why I just recommend making another hitching post rather than waiting to build a stable, because making a stable requires 2 planks, which is not a high demand at all. But the planks, the saw pit, is not as huge of a priority in the early game. You're going to get to it very, very quickly, but I'd rather just get a second ox online by making another hitching post for a single timber and buying that ox and having that ox available, versus waiting all the time for this to upgrade to a small stable and then have both the ox there. Once I'm at a point where I can have this be a small stable, I'll click this button and I'll delete the other hitching post. You can do that if you want. Or you just keep 2 hitching posts around the map. You can just simply move this one and go, hey, you know what? We've expanded further, and I need one over here and one over here. Like these guys are pretty close together right now, and that's fine. So really, just like a lot of the buildings we've talked to up to this point, relocate them as you see fit, as your society grows and as your villages grow, so that you can, again, minimize the distance that your pops need to walk to complete their basic tasks. So a lot of your basic resource production is up and going. Let's now talk about creating your homes. Now, of course, you're going to go ahead and jump into the residential portion, click on the Burgage slot, and just drag this out to build the homes that you'd like, right? You're going to kind of have a weird situation going on over here. There we go. We'll just add another one right there. So, oops, actually, I have to talk about that. When you drag this out, you'll see that little arrow shows me where the front of the house is. This is important because I'd want this to face some form of road connect. If it's not, then they have to walk all the way around to find that road. And you can see that if I click this over here and here and here, I can drag these out to make different types and size of plots. So as it stands, if I were just to do this one, this is a single plot that has one home, then it has an expansion slot, which is that little hammer right here, right? The little hammer in the house. Then you see another little house over here with a plus symbol. This guy right there. That guy right there. That it means that this plot is going to be turned into a duplex, so it can actually have 2 families on the slot rather than just one. So let's go ahead and do that over here. because this allows me to have, is this 2 slots? Ooh, look at that. I don't think I wanted that. I wanted the one I had before. Yeah, that's what I want. Is it? Ideally, I like to have expansion slots on my stuff. That'll do, pig, I guess. Did I have that before? Whatever. What a great video this is. I think I did this, actually. Realistically, that's probably the right thing to do. So, again, I use the roads to kind of outline this so it has a bit of a dynamic feel, right? Like I did that with these. They feel a little bit cooler, a little bit more unique. But once these are built, it'll come up and look just like this. So, let me pause the game to take a look at this. With this Burgage slot, we have a number of things to go through. First, we have the backyard extension. Now, backyard extension allows you to specialize this slot or add a supplement to the lot, in that I can add a vegetable garden, a chicken coop, a goat shed, or an apple orchard. So what those 4 things do is it produces a means of me getting food or another thing like goat shed, which gives me hides. These 4 things do not specialize the Burgage slot, meaning that just your normal families will have them and they will exist as they need to. So for example, here we have a vegetable garden in the house right next to us. Both these houses. So now we have an additional source of food variety, allowing us to be happier. This is the same thing that's going to happen with the chicken coop. It does cost you gold to make these things, but that is nice because it's not going to cost you any other resource, and you have a whole thing that is constantly on year round as you need it. You don't have to assign workers to this. It's just there. Now, outside of that, though, you have this little break right here, right? Now, these other ones, these, 8, but it's probably soon to be 9, I would assume, are extensions that specialize the Burgage slot and turn the Burgage slot into artisans. So, I click on Armorer's Workshop, enables production of helmets. After unlocking advanced armor making and master armor making, enables production of mail armor and plate armor. Converts all inhabitants to artisans, locking them from being assigned to other jobs. So, I currently have 8 families, 3 unemployed, 5 employed. If I were to click this, effectively think of it as now 7 families, because one family is completely lost to you and only doing one specific task, and it's all they will ever do. So you need to constantly have a means of supplying them. The Bowyer's Workshop is a real good early one that you can do. Enables production of warbows. It just simply costs you 4 planks to use, and warbows themselves are easy to make. And turning on bows and arrows for your army is a really great thing. Or you can have Tailor's Workshop to make clothes, cloaks, and gambesons using leather and linen and flax and all the things that are attached to that. Or a bakery extension. So now they'll produce bread and with flour from flour with twice the efficiency of the communal oven, but they'll only do it. So again, just keep in mind, it is going to cost you to do these things. That's why I like the Bowyer's Workshop, because it doesn't cost you gold to do. It's just 4 planks. Same thing here with the Joiner's Workshop. But all these things specialize and turn this entire house into that artisan house. So use those kind of, not sparingly, but I would dedicate a slot and time for it. Like I wouldn't go, oh, you know what? I'm just going to turn these guys into Bowyers. Especially not in the early game, because I want them to work for me and do stuff, because it's the beginning of the society. I need to have things up and going. So I don't focus on these until like my 2nd or 3rd year, and I'm starting to deal with incursions from bandits and what have you. Now below that, though, we have requirements. Now what requirements are the requirements that this slot needs to upgrade to the 2nd level of its slot. And you'll see that this slot, level 2 Burgage slots, generate 1 regional wealth per family per month. So, big breath right there. This is why having a duplex progressed up to level 2 is nice, because you'll have 2 families in the slot. So this gives you 2 gold, right? It doubles the gold you get from it. Unlocks new extensions, though, including artisan workshops. Residential requirements will increase as well. So these requirements are what this slot needs to upgrade. So it needs water access, which is getting right over here from my well. It needs a church. So we don't have that right now. And what this is telling me is it just needs the church at the basic level of church. If this had 2 little diamonds, it's telling me I need the basic church and I need that church to be upgraded, which I see right here with the food stall. It needs 1 type of food. Actually, no, we need 2 types of food. Also, having more than 2 types of food when they only have a demand for 2 helps increase their happiness. Fuel stall supply. Hey, we need you to have fuel in this marketplace. And the clothing, okay, well, I need you to have a tannery set up or some form of linen, leather, or yarn production so that I can have, what's it called? Clothing. So you don't need to actually have clothing made. You just need linen, leather, or yarn. They imply kind of make the clothing for themselves, but not in like a marketable form. Like you can actually make, let's close all this. You can actually make, where is it? Cloaks, clothes, candles, salt, ale, shoes, herbs, or gambesons, and all those sorts of things. You can actually make those things. But with the clothing stall it's asking for the byproduct to make it quote unquote in-house for themselves that you can't ever touch. And the last thing with the Burgage slot is the armaments. So basically here, it's not going to give me the little breakdown I can show you. I have to have a family in there. Well, basically it's showing, the game should provide them. I guess not yet. Oh, we have to get up to level 2, I think, before we get that. But either way, the game will provide you with armaments, and these houses will actually house those physical armaments in them for the moments that you call them to militia. And the higher level houses will actually have better implied armaments on them. Like, oh, okay, well, hey, we've got all these things in the stash. They've gone and they've put them in their homes, and now they've got those, or they're crafting those and they've got full access to them. So armaments is just kind of showing you it's more accessible for the militia and combat portion of the game. It's just kind of showing you which houses have those, if any of them do. But with the Burgage slots, we have these market supply. So let's now talk about the marketplace. So your marketplace is huge, and I've mentioned it many times in this video already, but the marketplace is where all of your pops get access to all of the byproducts you've created from all of your resources, and it's how they will allow the progression of your Burgage slots. Now, I've already designated this location to be the marketplace, but just for the sake of showing you how to do that, I'm going to create a small little patch right here. You'd go into construction. You'd go into, you know what, residential. There we go. And you'd create a marketplace. Just like this. It shows me, okay, this has enough for 36 available market stalls. We're not going to worry about that right now. I would left click and this would just immediately, it just auto produces. It doesn't cost anything. It's just there. So we're not going to actually do it because I have one all set up. But with these market stalls, we have fuel, food, and clothing. That is what is going to go out to our Burgage slots. And I'm going to show you how that works in a second. But the important thing about the placement of your marketplace is you want it close to your granary and your storehouse, because that is where they will pull the resources from to put them on the market. And having those readily available and quickly accessible is huge, because like I've said many times now, getting things from here onto this is instantaneous. From the marketplace over to these is instantaneous. We just need to make sure that they can have those readily accessible and pull them from the granary, from the storehouse onto this marketplace. That is what's absolutely crucial. So having this all together is amazing. So this way they can access it, and then all these families that need it, as long as there is a store of it, a supply of it, it instantly transmutes to the house. And I might have explained that a little cattywampus earlier in the video, but let me show you here. We're going to click on this marketplace. I can see all my Burgage slots, right? Well, let's hover over food variety. So I can see that I have 89% food variety. What that means is 89% of my Burgage slots have their food variety needs met. I need to produce 11% more of food somehow, berries, meat, bread, whatever it is, to satisfy that one red one up there, right? You can see it doesn't have either slot satisfied. It doesn't matter what those are. You can see this one's got meat and it's got berries and bread. They're eating pretty well for medieval peasants, I'm not gonna lie to you. Now, conversely too, looking at fuel. Okay, I see that I've got 78% of my Burgage slots are satisfied with their accessibility to my fuel. This doesn't mean that I need to make a market stall here so that they can leverage it. It means that I need to produce more firewood. That's what that number means. Because I thought initially this meant, oh, they can't reach it. I could have had these Burgage slots all the way over here at the edge of my territory. It wouldn't matter. It instantly transmutes to those locations. As long as I have these numbers at 100% or as close as possible, it will meet the need. So take a look over here. So for example, these two houses, fuel supply, it's green. I see it's green. It's right here. It's right there. Food variety. Hey, it's green. It's green. Perfect. I see it marked right there. Let's look at this one. This one's red, right? Well, it doesn't meet either of them. They do not have access to either of those foods because there's just not enough food to go around. So I need to add more food to my stock. And you can see, even though it says food enough for 12 months, that's good and fine and dandy. I need more food, though, to offer the varieties. And what this will enable me to do, I obviously can't do it right now because I don't have other things met. But let's assume I had, here, I'll choose one of the ones. Yeah, this one right here. Let's assume I had these taken care of. This would be, it would enable me to do it. I click it and it'd be done. If my food reserves drop down and I like below the requirements, this doesn't degrade to a level 1 from a level 2. It stays at a level 2. It just needs those requirements met and then some more, because this is now going to go to 2. This is going to go to 3. This is going to go to 2. I think this goes to 2 as well. Water access, I believe, stays the same as well. So the Burgage slot progresses with the marketplace accessibility and the supply and the demand. It sounds super confusing, but seriously, once you just place it and go, oh, cool, that's just the percentage of my homes that are covered with my food variety, just got to put more food into it. Sick, got it. Bingo, bingo, bongo. And I have over here a tannery being built. Actually, go ahead and do that. What's going to happen with the tannery is we have tons of hides just chilling here. They're not doing anything. I don't even have a trading post set up to take advantage of those hides. So what this enables me to do is, when when this gets created, the tannery will go and take those hides and turn those hides into leather. And we talked about this just a second ago, right? The leather will then satisfy their clothing stall supply. And at 17, with only 8 families, it should be enough to satisfy the clothing supply for all of my Burgage slots. So that just kind of shows you that having this tannery here, which will have very easy access to my storehouse, is kind of falls back into our conversation on logistics, right? Then the tannery then having quick access to the marketplace, they can then sell all those goods, and it's kind of easy to kind of 1, 2, 3 wombo combo all that. So that's how you would expand and satisfy those needs for the Burgage slots, utilizing your marketplace and the marketplace's placement towards all the things that can kind of lean into it. I think this will, I got to put a person here and it's usually a pretty quick turnaround. They're like, oh, I'll go grab some tanners, some furs to tan. That's not really the term, but either way, not a smart man. Okay, so we've knocked that out. Let's move into another point of the beginning. So a lot of our basic things are established in the game. Let's look at our crops and our farms. And I have a whole video on this, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but as far as trying to at least connect the dots for you here in a beginner's guide, what I will say is you want to create smaller fields. You don't want one big, large field, because your pops, your families, will not have the time to plow and then sow all that field. It'll always just kind of mess up within the certain amount of time that you've got to do so, because everything will live and die off of this schedule. Right now, we're coming into September, almost into November, and harvesting, plowing, and sowing of crops would happen here. So basically what the game would do is, as soon as September hits, if you have crop rotation selected, if I click this button, the game will go ahead and chop all of this down, and it will then replow and resow the field so that it regrows come the new year. In the beginning of the game, that's not really going to be the case here, right? So I'm actually going to unclick that. I don't know. I hope they don't go out here and do that. I might have messed that up. But I can have these guys force that early harvest, do whatever I want, kind of on my own time. But crop rotation allows me to have the game kind of automatically set things as I wish. So with crop rotation, what I've got here is a growth, and a fallow. So next year, this would be fallow, growth. And I would just manually do this every time. And this allows me to kind of let this go all the way down to the kind of right in November to then go and harvest all this grain. Realistically, I think it's a bug right now, but if winter hits, this field won't be destroyed. It'll be fine. I think that is a bug. This field will stay as is in perpetuity until I harvest it, or I burn the field, or fallow the field, whatever it is. I have to do it. The game won't just delete the field unless I didn't finish sowing the crop. If we didn't finish plowing and sowing and it hits winter, it deletes the progress. So just kind of know that jumping into the first year here, putting all 3 of these fields, for example, onto fallow is just fine. And when you do that, it's going to increase the fertility, because when we go ahead and go press construction, before we even create our field, we can see the fertility overlay for emmer, flax, barley. You will eventually unlock rye. And really, yeah, you don't need the 3+ symbols. 2+ is just fine. You just don't want to, you want to make sure you don't do this in any of the negative symbols, right? The minus over here, or there's like, you can stack those up all the way to like a 2 or a 3. You don't want to touch those. Even just a single plus is fine. You'll be able to kind of change out that fertility with enough. Oh, wow, that was wild. With enough fallow. So I like to make my emmer fields on the green, or again, over here in the 2+ if I can. And we let them go for the first year. We would just fallow that or set up a very simple, small crop that we know will yield. Because if we do this, if I finally get to making my farm here in September, it's just not going to grow in time. So only really do this if you're right here in the middle of late spring, early summer, you'll actually have a growth. Otherwise, you're just going to waste that time. Now, after you make your field, you also have the ability, like I said over here, to set your crop type. So wheat, barley, and flax. This percentage is going to be based off of the fertility of the area and the size of your field. And your fields are measured in this field size right here. It's called a morgan. So 0.3 morgan is this size right there. And then that field can be whatever I'd like it to be, right? I can set it to wheat, barley, and flax. You can see this field is a 0.3. I think this one's a 0.4. They're both in the green, but this one has a 59% wheat and this is a 57%. So that fertility is kind of disseminated across the size of the field. You're not going to get a massive field having like 60% fertility unless it's like, I don't know, the best possible fertility, or you fallowed it a couple times, whatever the situation is. So you have this all set to 59, 40, and 30, whatever these are for the respective fertilities. And that's the crop that's going to grow. Wheat, barley for making malted ale, or flax for making linen. Linen will then go for making your clothes. You can also set the field priority. So if you have a larger field, you can set that priority to the highest, meaning that they will go and plow, sow, and harvest that field in the highest priority possible, because this allows you, if you have a very large field followed by 2, 3, 4 smaller fields, it's going to take a longer time to do all the things on it, right? Whereas the other ones will be done in a much quicker period of time. So you can go ahead and just kind of click that priority as you see fit. I just keep it on medium, to be totally honest with you. I don't really ever worry about it. And attached to each field, though, is your farmhouse. This is how you actually access them. And you can actually put the populations in here and they'll go ahead and come online and do whatever they need to do. They'll store any of the wheat over here in generic storage, and they'll thresh that wheat into grain and store it in the pantry. And then you've got advanced, where you can actually put a livestock here where you can leverage developments. And we'll have a whole section on developments, but you leverage this one right here, the heavy plow. Add a plowing station, and then the ox will come out here and plow a whole entire field for you. This is all covered in the farm video linked in the upper right-hand corner. But you can set the farmhouse's working area too. Eventually you'll grow to have more fields, and with a certain amount of fields, you'll want to have more farmhouses. So let's say we did this. Let me turn the curvature of this all the way down. Let's say we did this. And all of this was just another field here. Oops. Let's just use an example. Let's say that was another field. Well, it's going to take time to do this field, and then this field, and then this field, and then this field from one farmhouse. If rather than putting 2 families in this farmhouse, I can put 1 family in 1 farmhouse right here and have them work this field, and 1 family in this farmhouse and have them work these fields. But I can do this too. I can click limit the work area, click this button, and have these work areas overlap. So it creates a Venn diagram. So these 2 fields are closest to this farmhouse, and these 2 fields, well, this field is closest to this one, right? But this one kind of is not too far away. I can have that work area overlap right here so that they will kind of help out as they complete their tasks in that set work area. So as you expand your fields and as you make larger fields, you'll want multiple farmhouses rather than stacking just a ton of families into one. But this is a pretty big portion of this entire process. I never touch threshing priority either. I just kind of put it at medium and it does its thing. But that's how your farms work, and you should be setting your farms up as smaller fields rather than the larger big field that's really just not going to give you any benefit. And crop rotation and stuff like that, again, go into more detail in that video. I've just kind of lightly touched on it here so you understand how the crop rotation works, rather than just kind of going, oh, okay, I guess I'll do some crop rotations like this. It's not as difficult as it seems. It's pretty, once you kind of see things laid out, you're like, okay, that's clicking for me. But once you look at it initially, you're like, okay, I'll set this to wheat and that to fallow and this to wheat and that to fallow, and you're gonna get all cattywampus. I said that so many damn times in this video. But just remember, what's growing one year should not grow the next. That's the basic principle of crop rotation. And if you have, say, 4 fields, 2 growing, 2 fallow, you just kind of swap those on and off. Developments are going to be a big portion of the game, especially as you expand and grow each one of your villages and towns and what have you. You're going to want to invest more in a specific direction. Now, this is really going to be up to you and how to go about it. I think every time I've done it, I've done heavy plow because I like heavy plow. It really kind of makes the farming process a lot easier for me because I have access to ox. A lot of people recommend beekeeping so that you can get honey as a backyard kind of convention for all of your burgage slots. There's a lot of different things you could do here, like enables hunters to skillfully lay traps in the forest, which give passive income of meat. That's a really great thing here. Or hunters also collect hides from traps. So now you're getting passive hide generation as well, or doubles the amount of meat harvested by hunters and butchers from goat pens. Doubles capacity of all berry deposits. All these really cool things. Here's for smithing. But this is also not a completely fleshed out system in the game. Same thing with policies. I've not touched them once, but they exist, but most of them are not even really here. Only these 2 really. And production isn't even in the game right. So I would say just experiment with this. There's no reason to have a full set guide out here on how to approach your developments. Just choose one. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try this time around what trade logistics it's going to do for me. Or you know what do firewood and food carts really do for me in the long run? Play with them and experiment because they're A, prone to change, and B, they're not all fleshed out entirely, right? So we don't really know what the long-term effects of them are. Like, okay, honey seems cool, but what the hell is this? Okay, enables the beekeepers to also collect wax. Well, what does wax do? Candles, what does that have anything to do with anything yet? Like, we don't have necessarily all the parts to let you know that, yeah, this is a great one, and then it progresses over to these things, and those things allow for some really great stuff. It's hard to say. So have fun with developments. Don't get hung up on this. Choose one, experiment with it in your save, and maybe try a new save with a different way of going about your development. So winter is about to set in. Let's talk about having your first winter. And this is a good time to kind of start talking about another thing that relates to farming that we just spoke about. And we have harvested all of our crop, as you can see. And what we've done here is turn that wheat into grain. And with winter time, we want to take advantage of things that are really seasonal, or at least can be easily done during the winter without having to really kind of worry about the timeline of them, right? And that really it begs to reason, or whatever I'm trying to say. It means that we go from grain into flour into bread. And the reason, or the way that we do this, is by creating a windmill next to our farmhouse and then a oven next to our windmill, because the pops are going to take this from the farmhouse into the windmill, from the windmill into the communal oven. And just to kind of lean back on what we talked about in logistics, if we've turned off I think this is upgrading. If in the large granary or the granary, we've turned off grain, wheat, and flour. We want it all to go to each respective building, and then the communal oven will be that final building that brings it back to our, in fact, even I'm going to do a little bit of this. Probably take a little wrap around here. Make this kind of, I want to get a little curvature in it now. Make this just kind of come over to this. That way it can kind of, the guy doesn't have to go all the way around to deliver food, bread, back and forth. This is a really great thing to do during the winter because we have got nothing else to do in these fields. They've been plowed, they've been sowed, they're growing, they're good to go. We're set. We let this kind of new field go while this fallows. So while this does its thing, we have the production of all of our bread. And I'm actually going to put people into these things now. We're done working at the farmhouse. That's all set. So that's kind of the first thing that we're going to do with winter is setting up kind of our bread production, because it's another form of food that we could even do into the early spring and what have you before we hit March, when we're going to decide what to kind of build out into the proper field and what have you. Now, another big thing is doing a Stonecutter Camp. So let's talk about that now. The Stonecutter Camp is basically, well, you guessed it, how you're going to be getting your stone. And right now we're kind of overburdened right now with our stone because we just upgraded our storehouse. But really what you're going to find with the Stonecutter is that it will, this is actually kind of weird. That kind of thing is bugged right now. That's funky. It'll be finished shortly. What you'll find is you'll get stone at a real crazy rate. Like right now, I've got 163 stone. We're done. We don't need any more stone for the foreseeable future. And stone is one of those things that you can very quickly get to sell at a trade post for some very quick and early money. But a Stonecutter Camp is something that's great to do during the winter because you can quickly get a good yield of it. You don't have to worry about much. And you have a lot of pops that are maybe off of other things that they would be doing otherwise, like foraging or farming or other things of that sort. So now I just freed up my Stonecutter Camp. I'm not worried about that because we have another building that we can go to use during our first winter. And that is our hunting camp again. So I'm actually going to put 2 people back here, because all of the things over here have fully repopulated, if not overpopulated. So let's go hunt some wild animals, because that'll give us leather and food, or I'm sorry, meat, food, I was right, once again. Because if I look over this, we have actually eaten our entire meat reserve. We only have vegetables, berries, and bread left. So this will allow us to tap into that resource once again and add more food variety, because our marketplace, we have a good 100% food variety, but we want to keep that at 100% so that I can upgrade these Burgage Slots. This first winter is the best time, or any winter really is the best time to do these upgrade constructions where you have just more people running around doing stuff, right? I spent a lot of time cutting a ton of firewood. So I have people on my saw pits, on my woodcutter's lodge, because I've got just like a ton of timber too, so we can convert that into planks. These are all the times that I do a lot of my big construction projects, because I'm not constantly swapping pops out of workspaces to go put them and have them do this or that over here or something over there. It just seems to be one of the things that I can very quickly turn from one resource into another, or quickly expand either Burgage Slots or a church or a manor, whatever it is, to really kind of open up the future of my society. I think that winter is a time that we look at as a kind of a dead time, but in this game, it's one that you can really get a lot of really quick growth off of, because you've got things that are so freed up. Another example here would be the forager hut. I can't harvest berries right now because it's seasonal, right? They're shrinking. This will come back online in spring. So that's when I'll swap things off of maybe the hunting camp onto the forager hut or what have you. So really use this first winter, or just winter in general, as a way to kind of push you ahead of the curve tech-wise. Coming into winter too, we should be taking a look at our population, our homes, expanding, whatever it is. So let's take a look at those values, which maybe would have been better described in the Burgage Slot section, but still. So going from left to right at this top bar here, we've got unassigned families that are basically helping out with construction, including the guiding the ox to transport timber. We have assigned people that are set to jobs right now. And we've got 12 total families, right? As well as living space. I'm sorry. We have 12 total families, but we only have living space for 12 families. So we cannot expand who we have available to us. We're going to hit 12. We actually just hit 12 before I hit record. So that is where we stand. But this means that we have a total of 36 population. So across all of them, that's how many people are in our total village. So this is a good time to kind of slow down and go, you know what? We have 3 timber. We're going to have more soon. But oops. Let's go ahead and kind of expand one of these slots. You know what? We've got some extra slots back here. Go ahead and do this. Let's see what we can get out of this here, huh? That requires 4, so we need to get like 1 or 2 more. And we'll build out 2 more slots here to hopefully get more population going. Because this is all good and dandy to have all this expansion time, but we should also use this time to kind of plan for future increase in our population, which brings me to talking about the number of months before supplies run out. Don't look at this and go, oh, it's a static number. I've got 6 months and 11 months on my food and my fuel. You should really think of these things as dynamic things that are going to reduce the second you get more people. So that's why you kind of plan out, hey, you know what? I know I'm going to have more population coming in. So I should really kind of think to myself, what kind of number should I have here? And right now, fuel is being worked on. We have our woodcutter's lodge. They're making fuel very slowly. And we have the baker going, making some bread. And we have food coming in from our hunting camp. All sorts of things are bringing in food right now. We got the vegetables being produced by some of these actual slots themselves. So we do have the food. At least we just need to kind of up the actual outcome here, right? Or the output. So I could go ahead and just increase this on the communal oven for more bread. Or increase the woodcutter's lodge to increase that fuel intake. Because right now, 7 months isn't bad. The nice thing about a woodcutter's lodge is it's easy to hit the fuel. As soon as you see that thing come down to 1 month, you can kind of halt that immediately by putting 2 people in a woodcutter's lodge, and it'll turn around within like a matter of days. You can even see we have a ton of actual food, but still, we just have a lot of consumption. And we are up to 5 timber, so let's go ahead and make this little expansion slot here, huh? Do that, and this will do. Because basically what I'm going to do back here is make a whole nother portion of houses. We would, when I've got the resources for it, we would do something like this. Bring it out to there, bring it over to here, connect these plots, and make something that works rather than maybe do something like that. Basically, the front of this house kind of limits what you do here. So we have to kind of make this work where we create homes without basically losing the real estate of what we're creating, right? The plot's too small here, right? We have to kind of make this work. We could even just build another road out. Add some curvature. Make this road a little bit fancier. Actually make this road come around. Because I'll show you why. Have this road go here. Come on, pig. Come on, pig. There. I'll build that one out. Because I'm going to do road, alt-click, remove it. Now I've got more actual real estate. Move around with this road. That thing's just not going the way I want it to. Where was it? Where was it? You'll find that you'll do this quite a bit in the game if you are in any way like me and you have to have the roads kind of like sit roughly how they were before or whatever it was. Oh, man. Oh! Either way, you understand what I'm trying to do here. Just going to do this for the sake of the video here so we can keep going. Make this terrible ass road. There we go. But this allows me to now have more room back here to expand this. And you could even just not do what I did, right? You don't need to have these things be on a set like little platform and have it be like, oh, here's all the housing. I could just keep expanding this over here as well. So don't feel like you need to kind of keep things in one block. They can be as dynamic as you want. We could do that to add more houses if we wish. But like I said, population growth and how you're expanding that is a big portion of this. And being able to kind of leverage these slower times to say, okay, what is our fuel and food going to look like once we have both these slots filled up? It'll be a big portion of it. And we want to constantly have a +1 or a +2 here if we are having a good supply of food and fuel. Your population growth is going to be huge because the larger your population, you can derive taxes from them. You have more workers. You have more people that you can be doing specific artisan crafts with, just tons of things. So population becomes another crucial resource for you as you start to grow into these latter portions of the game. All right, we've just finished our church, and this is a good time to talk about it. It's winter. We've done all this expansion. Now, the wooden church is going to be something that you'll eventually upgrade to a small stone church in time, where you'll create things with the stone tiles from clay. But by and large, you can just keep this completely unmanned. It just needs to be there. You would only man it when you start to have people dying. As you can see here, if you hover over, provides hallowed ground for burial for the dead villagers. Workers become grave diggers. That's the only reason here. There's no like priests that go out and bless people or anything like that. It's only there as a means to bury your townsfolk. The corpse pit is used to bury like raiders and evil people, which we'll talk about in the combat section. But that is our church. I just wanted to quickly show it off and talk about it because it is part of the game. I think it's something that will become a bigger part of the game in later patches and whatnot, and upgrading it will be a requirement for some of your increased burgage slot increases, right? So now we actually have these, the church level is satisfied because we have a church, but this will eventually become, since at least a wooden church, this will eventually say at least a small stone church. It'll say something of that sort once that increases. On the note of your populations and the church and all those things, they kind of lean into one very important thing: upgrading our burgage slots. So we now have all of our requirements met, and we're going to go ahead and upgrade this plot in specific because it has the ability to expand its living space. Remember, once we upgrade this level 2, I'm going to go ahead and click it. It jumps into this construction section. They're going to go ahead and bring the 4 timber across, and they'll build it out. But once it's at level 2, what's nice here is that will then produce double the regional wealth for me as means of just being a level 2 slot. As we saw over here, it says right there, generates 1 regional wealth per family. So having these duplexes become level 2 is nice to just kind of have that increase here for me. And I'll show you the difference here between level 1 and level 2 once this finishes being built. We're almost there. But I would try to focus on your duplexes first, just the two family lots. Upgrade those first, and don't do all of them at once. I would kind of just take your time, hit one, and don't just think, okay, I'm going to do 20 all at once. You can see the immediate difference between a level 1 and level 2 slot. We can now also see the difference in our requirements. I'm going to go ahead and pause that. So you can see that now our food supply went up by another one. The clothing supply went up, that church level went up, and now we need a tavern. So that tavern needs to be turned online, and we need to produce ale. And ale is produced through brewing extensions. Produces ale from malts, and that'll also be part of this whole situation, right? The malt house. Workers use barley to produce malts, needed to be refueled once per month. So I can either use it through the extension here or actually build a malt house. So I've got all sorts of ways that I can approach this and have fun with expanding my burgage slots and thus all my people. So you've made enough wood, you've made enough timber, you've made enough stone. It's now time to create your manor. Now the manor here is going to be pretty much your big thing, right? Required settlement level, small village, residence of you and your retinue, grants influence, rises the administration level by 1, and this will allow you to have a retinue of really cool soldiers that you have pretty much direct command over. So we're going to go ahead and click this, and I'm gonna make it kind of far away from my village. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we can make it right here. In fact, even, you know what? We'll get specy and spicy. We'll go ahead and make this come like this. Do this like that. And I'll show you why in a second. And we're going to go ahead and make our manor right the edge of this thing. In fact, actually, I'll do. There's only one way into the manor. There we go. The manor is now made, and we jump into this special mode, the Castle Planner. Now, the Castle Planner right now has kind of, it's not bugged, but it's very limited in what it can do. So I can go ahead and just press commit, and we'll make this manor as is, nothing else. And that's totally fine. You can place roads, but it's bugged right now. It places walls. Don't use it. You can place walls and gates by clicking it. You can't see it because of the what the hell is it called? The snow. This little thing pops up, and I can go ahead and click this here. And just like roads, I can increase the curvature of this if I want. And I have this go all the way around. That is just kind of going wild on me. I can have this kind of feel that it's kind of just jankety because I have that curvature all jacked to high hell. There we go. And I can kind of just make a little wall around this whole thing. And as I go over roads, it naturally creates little gatehouses, which is kind of cool, right? So this tells me, though, it's going to take me 60 timber. I'm sorry, 2 timber, 60 planks just to do this. And I can go ahead and click it. And it shows me right here, the construction cost right now to make this whole situation as is going to be this. And then I've got the outer tower here, which will provide garrison space. Garrison units and villagers shoot projectiles at approaching enemies. That's these little guys right here. And click that right there. And click that right there. And what it does is, again, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see there's this outline. Well, these outer towers increase the kind of circle of this, the kind of zone of control of our manor, right? Where the retinues, where the garrison will actually go out and protect the village. So what would be kind of cool here is eventually, in due time, in the medieval time, your manor was pretty much separate from your village, but eventually they grew to encompass the village because the way a siege would work is that sieges were essentially, can we hold out for long enough, right? That's the big bet when it comes to a siege. And when they would eventually encompass the entire village, it didn't matter because we have the means of production basically to keep that siege going. It's a funny fact is that very few castles actually were breached. They were actually won out in a siege by simply starving the inhabitants. Like that's how they usually won. A castle was meant to be positioned there to last through a siege, to get reserves to come to a location, and you couldn't ignore a castle because a castle usually had some form of garrison that could sally out and kind of interrupt your invasion plans, whatever it is. Again, fun history facts. You didn't think you'd know, but now you do. Now, you can create those things, but you also have a garrison tower here too that will further increase your garrison retinue. Increases max retinue size by 12, limited to 1 per region. So this allows you to increase that retinue quite a bit. This allows you to have more garrison. And then a tax office, which is just cosmetic right now. Doesn't do anything. You can place it wherever you want. But you can see that placing all these things costs an exorbitant amount. So for right now, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to remove a lot of this. I'm not even going to place pretty much any of it. I'm just going to have this thing kind of be just on its own because I don't have all the resources to make all that right now. I mean, I can do like the walls and the gates, whatever it is, but I just press commit and now they're going to come over here and build that. And once this is built, I can jump back into that viewer and change things around as I want, add more to the manor, whatever. It's never just like a one and done. Oh, you didn't do it then, you can't do it now. No, you're fine to just do that again at any point in the game. They're gonna go ahead and build this, and you press Castle Planner again. It'll be another button you press like right over here, and that'll be all set to go. Now, one subject I want to kind of touch on here, but it's not fully fleshed out, but is also kind of fleshed out, is trading. And trading is going to come down to either trading your commodities, which you've got access to, your construction, your crops, your materials, all sorts of stuff, or livestock. So you can go ahead and add in more oxen, mules, horses, sheep, lamb, all sorts of fun stuff. You can buy them and start breeding the sheep and shear those sheep for wool and what have you. this is how you would do that process. And the same thing over here when it comes to your trading post. So you click over on this button and you'll see stuff like, let's take a look at our stone. Well, our stone is really, we have tons of it, right? But we can also tell that you've got two prices here. That 1-11, it's telling me that the export, I can sell it for 1 or buy it for 11. So I've got those capabilities. Or planks, for example, or roof tiles and blocks and other crops over here, other food over here, some materials. I think food has some major trades. No, it doesn't. Materials, what have you, you can see as we just kind of go through it. Leather's a pretty good one to sell because you can get a ton of it pretty easily and then sell it for a good amount. It's a great way to get a little bit. And commodities we have as well. So like tools, stuff like that, and military as well is all in this kind of section. Now, what you'll notice though, is you have, how do you really like sell it? So let's go ahead and just look at something easy like stone. We click this little button and we go to import it to buy it, or export it to sell it, or full trade, trade until desired surpluses reach. So that means they're going to buy or sell to hit this number. So if I press export, the game is going to tell my trader, when I station someone here, to sell all the way down. Well, let's just put 100. They're going to sell 32 units. I'll get 32 gold. And this allows me to pretty much just always have 100 stone for whatever means I need. But at the same time, the trader's going to see, oh, you've gone up in your stone surplus. Well, let's go ahead and sell some of that. And they'll constantly make sure that to kind of keep it at that amount. It helps you quite a bit. It's a great way to get access to a lot of early money in the game. And this is pretty much just leveraged by looking at what you have surplus of and sell it. You can buy and sell and do this as you see fit. But sometimes you'll need to actually set up a major trade route, and that costs you money to do that. After paying to establish a trade route, a dedicated traveling merchant will regularly visit your region to trade only this specific type of good. That's where the development over here comes in. This one where establishing a new trade route always costs a max of 25 regional wealth. So coming back to this menu, let's say we want to set up a trade route for roof tiles. Well, it's not going to cost 48 anymore. It's only going to cost me 25 gold, a little bit more accessible. So having your trader here allows you to kind of set these things up. Use this once you start to really set up an economy. This is like a year 2 or 3 thing. You can have it built and then leverage it once you get a huge surplus of stuff and then kind of go back and forth. But once you really start to get things pumping on all cylinders, you'll use the trading post. Same thing too with your livestock trading post. Once you really get a good amount of income, you can start to leverage getting more sheep into your village so you can get wool produced, which is going to be nice for you. And if you have this one, sheep breeding, sheep grazing on the pastures slowly multiply. So you can have your sheep start to grow for you so you're not constantly buying them. But it's done the same exact way as you would with the other one. So sheep, go to import, and we would set that to like 2. We're constantly going to buy until we're at 2, whatever it is to make it work. Or no trade. So you just kind of do this as you see fit for your campaign and what makes sense for you. Trade is something that is not crucial in the beginning, but I did want to talk about it, this being a beginner's guide. All right, we've hit spring. It's March. Everything's starting to thaw. We are in the earliest forms of spring with frequent raining, seasonal deposits regrow, stuff like that. What does that mean? That means these are regrowing. Berries are now growing, whereas they were not before. So this is when you can kind of shift gears back to the style of setting up your farms yet again, pulling things away from our windmill. Our farmhouse is completely empty. We don't need to have anyone over here at a communal oven anymore. We can remove that pop. We can put them back here into a farmhouse and go to our fields, right? Remember we had these 2 set to fallow? Well, now we're going to go back and we're going to take advantage of putting our ox over here, and we're going to quickly regrow this field because during the winter it blew out anything that was just kind of chilling there. That's kind of how winter works. And we can maybe remove stuff like, okay, our wild animals are 11. We don't need 2 people over here anymore. We can maybe put them back towards the forager camp, or maybe go back towards lumber logging camps. Just kind of move things around now that things have opened up to you a little bit more into your first spring. And after you've done all that, you've kind of completed your first rotation around the game's, what are they called? Seasons, and your first year really of kind of deciding how things work. And that kind of brings us to our conclusion. But before we go to our conclusion, we should talk about combat, the last thing on our list. And we have some outlaws heading for another one of my villages. So I'm going to jump back here to our village, and we're going to see what we've got to kind of access this. So we're going to hover over this location. I've got 20 large shields and 20 spears. That's going to allow me to press V and press this button to take advantage of forming militia. Now, since I only have spears and shields, I can only form the spear militia. If I had enough to form maybe the pole arms or the archer or the militia footmen, I would be able to do so, but unfortunately I do not. But I also have access to, in this specific save, my retinue, because I have my manor that has been built. My manor is just expanding its walls and everything. So right now, if I kind of zoom all the way out, I can see that these guys are real far away. They're going to take a long time to get to us. So I'm going to load up a portion of this save that I have before. This is one of my very first saves that I ever did, where we're just about to get into combat. So let's go ahead and show that off. All right, so they are almost at my borders. Let's get ready to do this. Actually, I think they're right at my borders. So I can see that they're probably going to come in a straight line about right through here. And that means I need to get my militia ready. Now I can summon them up beforehand and let them just sit there, but that's just people not working in the meantime. Let's go ahead and press this unit button. We're going to create those spear militia. Now, when you do this, they will go ahead and go grab all the equipment that they need, but it's going to take them time and they're going to come out a little like exhausted. So we're going to click both of these and click rally and click right here. They're going to go ahead and quickly run to all their stuff, grab all the things that they need to. Oh, that was weird. You can see they're coming around. Retinue comes out from its little hidey hole. The guys are coming through these forests right now. So the spear militia we're gonna put right here. I don't know where they're at, but our effectiveness is a little bit low because we're going to be a little... There we go. We have to get our cohesion up and everything. So, let's go ahead and pause. Take our other guys and we'll put them like over here in due time. Basically, I want to use these to do like a hammer and anvil. So our spear militia, as they're ready, you can see we're on the top of a hill too, right? A slight decline. And they'll probably be coming... Oh, I just saw them. They're going to go. They'll be coming through these woods any minute now. And with this, we've got some stances. We can go ahead and give ground, meaning slowly pushes the formation line backward, luring the enemy to follow. We can do a missile alert. Soldiers watch for enemy missiles. Chance to avoid or block enemy missiles is doubled, but melee defense is halved. Balanced, they're just there. Or stand your ground. We'll go with the stand your ground. We can have them also push forward, but this is kind of an auto thing. They will push into this if you have them move. We can go ahead and also disband the unit, run to position, or hold. So right now they're going to hold there. Now, this is our militia unit. I can go ahead and press tab, and now I get a lot more information, right? So they're awaiting orders, their morale is high, they're in the home region, and their effectiveness is going to start increasing because we have them on stand your ground. Their fatigue is going to fall off because they were just recently mustered, so that's no big deal. But you can see that I also have a characteristic called impaling. So since they're standing your ground, they can lower their spears and basically impale things on their spears, impale, quote unquote. It's basically like an armor penetration on charge type of characteristic is what it seems like. But conversely, if I look over at my retinue, they don't have impaling, but they've got a charge, they've got big heavy armor, they've got good attack, they've got anti-armor, they also have 31 shield. So you can see that there's quite a difference in these two characteristics. You just hold down tab to get them. And you can also see at a glance, okay, these guys are in stand your ground versus my retinue is unbalanced. This allows me to kind of see all the information I need at a glance. So we're going to go ahead here and unpause. We'll see where these guys come out. They might come out a little over here, and we'll adjust as needed. Sometimes this gets a little wonky too, like these two guys are hanging back for some reason. Just go ahead and reform the line. I'll speed it up a little bit. Watch, they're going to come out over here. My whole video's been ruined. There we go. So yeah, we can see that they're coming. The nice thing is they're going to come just right down the pipe, just like we want them to. What was that noise this game just made? And I'm going to take these guys, and right when they hit contact with the line, we can split across. So let's pause there. So this is going to happen, right? We're holding down tab. We can see now they are climbing. They're having to march uphill into my units. They have a good amount of fatigue on them. Their effectiveness is already low, though. So we can see that we're in a good position. The balance, though, you can see it's kind of not that, like they're 18, we're 20, and they're like brigands, we're militia. One thing to note as well is a lot of these guys are coming from level 1 houses. The guys from level 2 houses have these sick ass wicker baskets on their head with the bracing of the iron over them. And I think some guy has like a gambeson. This guy has a cloth coif, as it was called. And no one's got a gambeson because I don't have any gambesons. But these guys, my retinue, they've got chain, they've got gambesons, they've got nasal helms, all sorts of fun things. So what I'm going to do now is, while this is going to take its time, I'm going to position these guys over here. I'll show you how this works. That's going to happen. They've met. Already an immediate amount of damage was taken, hit their morale, impaling, doing all sorts of cool stuff. Again, that impaling is something they're not going to get skewered on the spears. It's mainly just like an AP bonus for things that get charged, like a counter. Okay, so now we have these guys in this really cool position. Let's go ahead and do this. They're going to jump right into it, and this immediately puts their effectiveness at 30%. They are fatigue, low ground. They have the high ground against my guys because they kind of wrapped around a little bit, but now they're surrounded. That's just not good for them. My guys, though, my retinue says fatigue, low ground, cohesion, climbing, all those things are stacked up against them, but it's not a big deal. It'll kind of make sense as we push around. I should have actually had them attack on the side over here. But my guys, too, at the top, 121% effectiveness. These guys are going to start tanking their morale, and my retinue is going to be just fine. I could even probably like do this and keep them over in this direction, but it wouldn't be too big of a deal. I think we can actually, we're going to keep stand your ground, but we could probably push forward to try to like cause some sort of issue here. They had 18, now they're at 15. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. I don't know who died. None of my guys. Cool. So they went ahead and fled. Now, if you know anything about medieval history, the majority of warfare in medieval history was actually won by making the other army rout, especially at this level of engagement. The feudal lord squabbling that happened throughout the Middle Ages typically dealt with small militias and men-at-arms that were part of the household guard of the manor, of the lord, of the duke, of the baron, whatever it was, and then a bunch of mercenaries, which you can leverage in just a little bit I'm going to talk about. So you can see that we've gone ahead and we've had a bunch of success here, but now we've got a bunch of corpses. Before we deal with those corpses, though, one thing I do want to talk about is pressing this button and then pressing that button. So we could have hired mercenaries had we had the money to take advantage of them. So we could have gotten the Battle Brothers here, light mercenary infantry or mercenary spearmen or mercenary archers, whatever it was. I just don't have any of this money, so I can't make that fly. But if I wanted to, you could instead use the treasury here, your treasury, to buy these mercenaries. Just got to keep in mind, they will arrive at certain locations. So if they're not next to you and you're really pressed for needing some additional forces, they might be across the entire map and not be able to really help out. So we've got all those things. We're all good to go here. What we want to do now with these corpses is we want to bury them. So if they are our corpses, but thankfully they're not, we're at 20 and 20 and 5 out of 5, we can go ahead and just disband. They'll all go back to work. We want to be able to put these into a corpse pit. If they were our corpses, they would go over here to the church. We'd want to employ someone. But we don't need to do that. We're going to go back to residential and go make a corpse pit. Corpse pit can be really wherever you want it to be. I'm just going to place it right here for now. They'll build a corpse pit, and then they will move these corpses into there. If you don't, they'll get pissed off at you. They'll say, "Yeah, there's corpses on the ground. What's up with that, man?" So this is a great way to take care of that. And the corpse pit it'll construct, it'll do its thing. You'll put people at it, and they'll move those corpses. One of the last things I do want to say about these fights is those guys, they've routed off the map. They're completely off the table. They're not going to come back. They're not going to. You don't have to worry about chasing them or anything like that. So it's a pretty easy, simple system in the beginning. It does get more complex as soon as you start adding more armament and having bigger locations and bigger bigger armies to deal with and going to deal with those bandit camps, stuff like that. But just for beginners, that's how you would go and kind of leverage your militia to deal with all of those bandit incursions and whatnot. See, this says bodies need burial. Villagers required to be buried on hollow ground of the church, while raiders may be dumped into a corpse pit. I don't know why this is taking so long, but either way, this corpse pit would be built, and you employ a worker here, and he would just scoop up all these corpses and put them into the corpse pit. So after that first year, you really kind of have a base understanding of the game, right? I'm actually going to unpause this. You know what to do for this point going on. You understand how to kind of disseminate what your pops need and how to create those things. We didn't go into creating stuff like the tavern and where that tavern should go. It doesn't matter. Place the tavern wherever the hell you want. But this gives you access to ale. Okay, well now I need to know, what do I do with that ale? Well, we have to make a malt house, and a malt house means we need to have barley. So maybe we need to expand one of our fields here to add barley in. Oh, all these are all crap. Oh, we'll make a barley field up here if we want. Or we just turn one of these fields into barley, even though it's 39% yield. That's not terrible. It's not bad at all. So you now know a lot of the basics to navigate a lot of the demands the game has on you. And hopefully this video was a way for you to kind of break into some of the mechanics that are a little bit scary or a little bit confusing at first. Maybe you didn't know that the pops only use their hands to transfer one thing at a time. They use hand carts to transfer 10. And that's why we keep certain things in certain locations to help maximize everything together. We didn't talk about the Weaver Workshop, which produce wool into yarn or flax into linen. But again, now you know how to address those situations and go, okay, that's how that works. Let me go figure out how to do it. Like, next thing up is probably to work on our clay, meaning we would need to make a mining pit, and we would drop it over here by our clay deposit, and we would create the means to have the transportation of that item over to those locations. So if you have any questions or there's anything else you're still struggling with the game, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. And I'm more than happy to help you out and get you started in the right direction. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.